"You're just an immigrant." He said it loud enough for the marble walls to carry it, loud enough for his mama to hear, loud enough to make sure she knew he wasn't afraid of her anymore. She didn't answer. She just folded her hands in her lap and looked at him the way you look at something already dead. That's when his lawyer noticed her ring. Not the wedding band. The other one. Vintage, flawless, 8 carats. Worth more than the house they were sitting in. Rewind for years. Nobody at Morningside Baptist knew where she came from. Not really. They knew she was foreign. Her accent gave her away the first Sunday she showed up. Soft. Careful. Every English word measured like it cost something. They knew she was beautiful in that quiet, graceful way that made the younger women feel loud and overdone. And they knew Deacon Harold Whitmore married her 8 months after Sister Joyce passed. That part made people talk. But Harold's standing in the church and his money kept them polite. Her name was Amara. Nobody could pronounce it right. She never corrected them, never asked for much. Showed up to every fish fry, every usher board meeting, every committee gathering, and smiled like she was just grateful to be included. Harold's son, Cameron, called her Daddy's mistake. His mama, Harold's sister, Lorraine, called her that African woman. His daughter, Shanice, didn't call her anything at all. And for years, Amara acted like she didn't hear none of it. She poured sweet tea. She listened while they talked around her. She made herself invisible. But there was something they all missed. Something they would have seen if any of them had been paying attention. Amara never looked surprised. Not once. That was the first sign. This is a golden heart story for anyone who's ever walked into a room and been treated like you didn't belong. For anyone who stayed quiet while folks talked over you like you weren't even there. For anyone who survived by letting people think you were less than you are. Before we go any further, tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by people who should have known better? Because Amara had been. For 4 years. And she was about to show them why the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. She woke up every morning at 5:15. Made coffee in the kitchen even though Harold had hired a housekeeper who came at 8. She liked the stillness, the dark, the feeling of being the only soul awake in a house full of people who pretended she wasn't there. Harold used to sit with her. In the beginning. Back when he still asked about Lagos. About her daughter back home she was putting through medical school. About the economics degree she earned in 3 languages. He used to say, "You got more sense than anybody I know." But after the wedding, the question stopped. And after the cancer came back, stage 4 everywhere, 6 months if he was lucky, he stopped talking much at all. Amara sat with him every single day during that last stretch. Read to him. Prayed with him. Switched between English and Igbo when he was too tired to follow. Held his hand while Amara and Lorraine argued about the estate in the next room loud enough for him to hear. And when he died, Amara didn't cry at the funeral. Lorraine made sure everybody noticed. Cold as ice, somebody whispered behind a funeral program. Amara heard it. She always heard it. Cameron Whitmore was 46 and tired of pretending. Tired of working at his father's real estate development firm where he had a title but no real authority. Tired of a marriage that had been over for 3 years but nobody had the energy to end. Tired of his daughter barely returning his calls unless she needed money. And tired of feeling like his father spent the last decade of his life disappointed in him without ever saying it out loud. So when Harold died and the lawyer said Cameron was executor of the estate pending final review, the will said whatever that meant, he finally felt like he mattered. He was going to protect what his father built. He was going to take care of the family. And he was going to get rid of Amara. Because the wife, the immigrant, like Lorraine kept saying, had no claim. She'd signed a prenup. Harold's attorney, Vincent Morrison, had made sure of it. Cameron's lawyer, Derek Stone, had reviewed every page. Ironclad, Derek said. She gets the house for 18 months. A small trust fund, that's it. No stake in the business. No seat at the table, no control. Cameron hailed for what felt like the first time in months. She can't fight this. But that morning, 5 weeks after the funeral, he wanted to make sure she understood. It was supposed to be simple. Cameron asked her to meet him in the dining room. Respectful, straightforward. Derek was there. Lorraine insisted on coming. Shanna sat in the corner scrolling her phone, barely present. Amara walked in wearing a navy-wrapped dress and her silver reading glasses. No jewelry except her wedding ring and that other ring nobody had ever asked about. She looked a small. Cameron cleared his throat. Amara, we need to discuss next steps. She nodded. Derek's reviewed the prenuptial agreement. You're entitled to stay in the house for 18 months. There's a trust, $300,000. After that, we'll need you to make other arrangements. Arrangements, Amara repeated quietly. Yes, ma'am. She looked at Derek. This is legal. What he's telling me. Derek shifted in his seat. The prenup is binding, yes. Lorraine leaned forward, fingers laced like she was about to let a prayer circle. Sweetheart, you knew what you were signing. Harold was more than fair, more than generous considering. Amara's face didn't change. I see. Cameron breathed easier. We're not trying to be unkind. But you have to understand, you were married for years. This business has been in our family for 43. Of course, Amara said softly. And then she stood. That's when Cameron made his mistake. Amara. She turned. You need to understand something. You don't belong here, you never did. Lorraine touched his arm, Cameron, baby. But he kept going. You're just an immigrant. You married a dying man and now you think you're entitled to his legacy? What can you possibly do to us? The room went still. Shanice looked up from her phone. Derek set down his pen. Amara didn't blink. She just said real quiet, "You'll see." And she walked out. Derek called Cameron 3 days later. We have a problem. What problem? Amara's retained counsel. Cameron laughed. Let her try. The prenup's bulletproof. It's not about the prenup. Silence. Then what? She's filed a motion to audit the company, alleging financial irregularities, potential fraud. That's ridiculous. Cameron, she has documentation. Real documentation. Offshore accounts. Shell LCS. Wire transfers your father made in the last 2 years. Cameron's mouth went dry. How would she even know? I have no idea, but her attorney is Justine Caldwell. Who? One of the top black women litigators in the country. She doesn't take cake cases she can't win. And she definitely doesn't work cheap. Cameron sat down hard. This doesn't make any sense. Amara doesn't know anything about the business. Derek was quiet. Cameron, what do you actually know about her? That night, Cameron did what he should have done for years ago. He Googled her. Amara Okonkwo. The results came slow. Then all at once. University of Lagos, first-class honors, economics. London School of Economics, master's degree. Worked in Berlin, financial consulting. Moved to London. That's where it got interesting. Senior Investment Director, Ashford Capital Partners. Managing Partner, Okonkwo and Associates. Board Member, West African Development Fund. Cameron scrolled faster. There were pictures. Amara in a boardroom in London. Amara shaking hands with a Nigerian governor. Amara standing next to a man in an impeccable suit at a gala. Caption read Okonkwo with late husband. Energy mogul Chiefat Amy Okonkwo. Cameron's hands started shaking. He clicked. Chafa de Amy Okonkwo, industrialist, philanthropist, estimated net worth $1.80 billion USD. Died 2018. Survived by wife Amara Okonkwo. Cameron's vision blurred. She wasn't some immigrant who got lucky. She was a widow. A billionaire widow. Who married his father. And never said a word. Cameron didn't confront her. He watched. Amara kept her routine. Coffee at 5:15. Quiet dinners. Polite silence when Lorraine made her little comments at Sunday dinners. But now Cameron saw it differently. The way she listened, she wasn't confused. She was taking notes. The way she dressed, she wasn't trying to blend in. She was letting them think she was harmless. One morning he found her in Harold's office. "What are you doing in here?" She looked up from a file cabinet. "Your father kept very detailed records. Those are private. They're also evidence." Cameron's chest tightened. "Evidence of what?" Amara closed the drawer. "Cameron, do you know what your father did the last 3 years of his life?" "He ran the company. He destroyed it." Silence. "He moved $22 million offshore. He sold properties under market value to shell companies he controlled. He fired auditors who asked questions. He falsified reports to the IRS." "You're lying." "I'm not." She turned to face him. "I didn't understand it at first. But then I realized he was dying. And he was terrified you'd lose everything. So he hid it." Amara nodded. "And now the feds are looking. Your mama's attorneys are looking. And if they find it before you do?" She didn't finish. "Didn't need to." "Why are you telling me this?" Amara looked at him for a long time. "Because your father loved you. Even when you made it hard. Even when you didn't see it." Cameron's eyes stung. "Then help me." "I am." It was Lorraine who burned it all down. She found the files Amara had been copying, saw the lawyer's name, and made a decision. She called an emergency board meeting, told them Amara was trying to steal the company, said she'd forged documents, that she was running a scam. "She's got my nephew confused," Lorraine said, voice shaking with just the right amount of hurt. "She's manipulating him while he's grieving. We can't let this continue." The board voted. Amara's audit request denied. Her access to company records revoked. Cameron tried to speak up. Lorraine shut him down. "Baby, you're too close to see clearly. You're hurting. You're not thinking straight." Shanna spoke for the first time all meeting. "Auntie's right, Daddy." Cameron looked at his daughter like he didn't know her. "You don't even know what's happening. I know she don't belong here." That night, Amara started packing. Cameron found her in the bedroom. "Don't leave." "I have to. We can fix this." "Cameron." She turned around. "You stood in that dining room and called me just an immigrant. In front of your lawyer, your auntie, your child. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Her voice didn't crack, but something in her eyes did. "I spent for years making myself small so you could feel big. I loved your father. I tried to love you, Amara. But not once, not one single time did you ask me who I was before I needed Harold." She zipped the suitcase. "I hope you survive what's coming." And she left. Cameron didn't sleep. He sat in his father's office surrounded by files he barely understood. He thought about Amara's hands. How she'd held Harold's in the hospital. How she made coffee every single morning, even though nobody ever thanked her. How she'd looked at him when he said just an immigrant. He opened his laptop. Searched her name again. Kept treating this time. Amara Okonkwo donated $60 million to girls' education initiatives across West Africa. Amara Okonkwo built maternal health clinics in rural Nigeria. Amara Conquai survived by being invisible. Now I make sure other women don't have to disappear. Cameron's throat closed up. She didn't need Harold's money. She never, so why'd she stay? He picked up his phone. Called her. It rang. And rang. If this story reminds you of someone you underestimated or someone who underestimated you, share it with them right now. She picked up on the seventh ring. Amara. Silence. I need to know why you stayed. Nothing. Then inside. Because he asked me to. What? Your father, 2 days before he passed. He said, they're going to tear down everything I built. Not because they're bad people. Because they don't know any better. He asked me to stay. To watch. To help if you'd let me. Cameron couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked, baby. Amara. I'm tired, Cameron. Please, let me make this right. Long silence. Then inside. The board meets again in 4 days. If you want to save what your father built, you're gonna have to tell the whole truth, all of it. I will. And Cameron? Yeah, you're gonna have to choose between protecting your auntie and protecting your father's legacy. You can't do both. Click. 4 days later, Cameron walked into that boardroom. He had the files. He had Amara's documentation. And he had something else. His father's final letter. Written to the board. Sealed. Never open. Cameron read it out loud. Every single word. I made choices I'm ashamed of. I hid money. I bent rules. I broke laws. I did it because I was scared. Scared my son wasn't ready. Scared my family would lose everything I built. But I was wrong. Cameron is stronger than I gave him credit for. He just needed to know I believed in him. And Amara, she's not what you'll think. She didn't marry me for money. She married me because I saw her. Really saw her. And she stayed because I asked her to protect what I couldn't. Listen to her, or lose everything. Lorraine stood up. This is ridiculous. Sit down. She froze. Cameron looked at the board. We're reopening the audit, full cooperation. And we're restructuring under Amara's financial oversight. You can't do that. I can. Daddy made sure of it. That pending review clause gives me full authority if financial misconduct is proven. He slid the files across the table. It's been proven. Lorraine's lawyer opened his mouth. The door opened. Amara walked in. She didn't sit down. Just stood at the head of the table in a cream suit that probably cost more than most of their cars. She looked at Cameron. He nodded. She looked at Lorraine. And said, quiet as Sunday morning, you were right about one thing. I am just an immigrant. She smiled. But where I'm from, we don't just survive powerful families. We bury them. 8 months later, the company survived. Barely. Restructured. Refinanced. IRS penalties paid in full. Lorraine moved to Atlanta. Shanice eventually came around. Took a while, but she got there. Cameron stayed. Learned the business. Really learned it at this time. And every Sunday after church, he had coffee with Amara. Not at the house. At a little spot on Martin Luther King Boulevard where nobody knew their business. She still made him a little nervous. But now he understood why. She wasn't dangerous because she had money. She was dangerous because she had patience. For years watching. Learning. Waiting. Remembering every slight. Every dismissal. Every time they talked around her like she wasn't in the room. One Sunday, Cameron finally asked, why'd you really marry him? Amara smiled into her coffee. Because he saw me. Not my last name. Not my money. Not where I came from. Just me. And that was enough? Baby, that was everything. She stood up. Put on her coat. Your father was a good man who made bad choices. You're a good man learning to make better ones. She squeezed his shoulder. Don't waste it. And she walked out into the Sunday sunshine. Cameron watched her go. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel small. Thank you for being here with us. If this story touched your spirit, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support keeps us telling the stories that need to be told. What part of this story is still sitting with you?